And we're actually going to make the sacrifice and talk about the WWE pay-per-view in Atlanta with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns in the main event that we want to see that isn't on the Royal Rumble or isn't on WrestleMania. It's on New Year's Day, a pay-per-view for the first time ever. Is this either a brilliant marketing ploy to get people to watch a pay-per-view on New Year's Day for the first time ever, or are they wasting the biggest match that they can put together?
Possibly both. I mean, it's an interesting concept, the idea of running wrestling on January 1st, doing a big show when people are typically home. But you're giving away what I think is clearly their biggest match on an event no one has heard of before, that's never been established. Like you said, you have Royal Rumble right around the corner. I don't know what WrestleMania will be that will have any real interest other than the brand WrestleMania.
And I'm afeared that they're going to try some kind of three-way to throw Brock and Reigns in with somebody else, and then you nullify the reason why Brock Lesnar is special, because in a three-way, it's obviously phony. And it's a rehash at this point because there's so many three-ways. But New Year's Day for wrestling is not a new concept, but for a pay-per-view it is. But for and Atlanta on New Year's Day is not. Hold on one second. I've got the Midnight Express book here in front of me because I think it was 86 and 87, was it not? Hold on. Yes. We were in Atlanta on Christmas night in the Omni at 8 o'clock Christmas night, 1986. And that was the annual fan appreciation night they would do on a Christmas holiday. That afternoon, we did Greenville, South Carolina, and the tickets were $3 fan appreciation night. And we only did $10,700 at $3 tickets because the previous year, I think we sold out. Nevertheless, then we went to the Omni and did $80,000 at $5 tickets, 16,000 people that night. And then 1 week later came back on New Year's night in the Omni and with regular prices and drew another 6,000 people paying $55,000. So in 7 days' time, there were two shows in the Omni that drew 22,000 people and grossed $135,000.
What were the main events? Were they big main events like a Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar?
Well, I do not have the cards since this is the Midnight Express scrapbook. We can take another break and I can go get in the vault, but I will tell you that we worked with Armstrong and Horner on the fan appreciation. They didn't waste big matches for the fan appreciation because it's $3 and $5 tickets. I think on January 1st, it was probably Dusty and Flair doing something with off of Starrcade. So if that was the case, it might have been Flair and Nikita and Dusty doing something with Tully, but the Midnight and Bubba were in a 6-man with the Road Warriors and Paul Ellering. So, and then there was a bunkhouse stampede, which Big Bubba won. So the January 1st was a big card. The fan appreciation, you just got to go to wrestling on the holiday for cheap and get away from your house. Because those were the days where no restaurant was open except for Waffle House. Nothing was going on. You either went to wrestling or went to a fucking movie if they were open.
Why do you think January 1st never took off like a Thanksgiving Day or a Christmas Day for wrestling?
Well, because for one thing, it was so close behind Christmas. Because
that's true, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta was doing good business at that time. That's why they, made that step. But a lot of places, unless it was a weekly territory to begin with, and the weekly territories, if you'll notice, Memphis, Continental, et cetera, they didn't do big shows because for the most part, I mean, every once in a while you get the world champion in or whatever, but they didn't do big shows that were constructed as big annual shows because they were there 52 times a year. So, it was hard. That's why January 1st, coming right after Christmas and Thanksgiving were the two biggest days of the year. So it just didn't take on in a lot of, although believe it or not, the only time I ever worked on New Year's Eve was the first week we spent in Mid-South Wrestling, and we were booked in Oklahoma City. That was the first time we ever went to Oak City. And I saw that. I'm like, New Year's Eve? What the fuck? There's not going to be anybody there. We got there. Guess what the fucking how? Well, hold on. You don't have to guess. I will. Well, you can guess in a minute when I tell you exactly, because I can't remember the exact figure, but I will go to this. But guess what the fucking house was on December 31st, 1983 in Oklahoma City.
Okay, that's not exactly, that's the end of the down period of Mid-South Wrestling, but it is the holiday time. I don't know. Why don't you tell me what it was?
Why don't you just write it off? $65,000. And at ticket prices back then, that was somewhere around 6,000 people on New Year's Eve. I'd worked in front of more people in a big house in Memphis because the Coliseum seated almost 11,000. I'd been there for at least one sellout and a couple big houses. But a sellout in Memphis in those days for 11,000 people was almost 50 grand. So this was the biggest house I'd ever worked on in a down period for the territory. And we were in a preliminary. I'm like, holy shit, what can we do here? And we found out later on we got $3,000 or whatever in the myriad when we sold it out. So that was an incredible surprise to me. I would have never thought New Year's Eve, but I've never seen it happen anywhere else.